June 6, 2010. SpaceX headquarters, Hawthorne, California. A rocket sits on a launch pad thousands of miles away in the Marshall Islands. If it fails, the company dies. If it succeeds, it rewrites the rules of space exploration. Everything Elon Musk owns is riding on this single launch. He's already failed 3 times. The money is gone. The critics are circling. This is the last shot. Back in 1995, this same man was sleeping on an office floor, showering at the YMCA, eating cheap food, coding a website that nobody wanted. He had dropped out of Stanford after 2 days to chase an internet dream that seemed insane to everyone who knew him. Fast forward to today, his companies have sent humans to space, forced the entire automotive industry to go electric, and promised to put 1 million people on Mars. He's been the richest person on Earth. He's bought and transformed one of the world's most powerful communication platforms. He's promised to connect human brains to computers. But he's also been called a fraud, a conman, a reckless gambler with other people's money. He's faced lawsuits, government investigations, and public meltdowns. His companies have teetered on the edge of bankruptcy so many times that betting against him became a Wall Street sport. So, who is Elon Musk, really? Is he the visionary saving humanity from extinction? Or is he a billionaire with a god complex? Is he the greatest entrepreneur of our generation? Or is he a warning about what happens when ambition has no limits? This is the story of a boy brutalized in South African schoolyards who became the man shooting cars into space. A story of rockets that explode, fortunes lost and remade, impossible promises that somehow come true, and one man's refusal to accept that anything at all, is impossible. This is Elon Musk. Elon Reeve Musk was born on June 28, 1971 in Pretoria, South Africa, during the height of apartheid. His mother, Mae Musk, was a Canadian-born model and dietitian who had moved to South Africa. His father, Errol Musk, was a South African electromechanical engineer, pilot, and sailor, a man of considerable talents and, by many accounts, considerable darkness. Elon was the oldest of 3 children, followed by his brother Kimball and sister Tosca. From the beginning, Elon was different. He was quiet, introspective, and lost in his own world. His parents thought he might be deaf because he often didn't respond when spoken to. They had his hearing tested. His hearing was fine. He was just thinking, processing, somewhere else entirely. Young Elon was obsessed with reading. He would read for 10 hours a day, consuming entire encyclopedias, science fiction novels, and technical manuals. When he ran out of books at the school library, he read through the entire Encyclopedia Britannica. His photographic memory absorbed everything. Later in life, Musk would say that books raised him more than his parents did. Science fiction shaped Elon's worldview. He devoured Isaac Asimov's Foundation series, which depicted a future where mathematicians could predict and alter the course of civilization. He read Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which taught him not to take life too seriously. He consumed stories about space exploration, artificial intelligence, and technological progress. These weren't just entertainment. They were blueprints for the future he wanted to create. But childhood in South Africa was not easy for Elon. He was small for his age, socially awkward, and intellectually far ahead of his peers. He didn't understand social cues or know how to make friends. He said what he thought without filtering, which alienated other children. The result was brutal bullying. Elon was beaten regularly at school. Once, a group of boys threw him down a flight of stairs and beat him until he lost consciousness. He was hospitalized with injuries so severe he had trouble breathing for years afterward. The physical scars healed, but the psychological impact lasted. Musk has described his childhood as one of the most difficult things he's ever endured. And this is a man who would later face multiple near bankruptcies and sleep on factory floors. Home wasn't much better. When Elon was 8, his parents divorced. Initially, Elon and his siblings lived with their mother, but around age 10, Elon made the decision to live with his father. It's a decision he would come to regret. Elon Musk was, by Elon's later description, a terrible human being. Elon has spoken sparingly about his father, but when he does, it's with visible pain. "You have no idea how bad," he once told a reporter. "Almost every crime you can possibly think of, what he has done." The exact details of what happened in that household remain private, but the effect on Elon is clear. He learned to be self-reliant, to trust his own judgment above all, to survive in hostile environments. He also developed an almost superhuman work ethic and an ability to endure suffering that would serve him later in life. Elon's escape was technology. At age 10, he got his first computer, a Commodore VIC-20. The manual said it would take 6 months to learn the programming language. Elon learned it in 3 days. By age 12, he had created and sold his first piece of software, a video game called Blastar, which he sold to a computer magazine for $500. It was crude, a simple space game, but it was his. He had created something from nothing using only his mind and a keyboard. As a teenager, Elon had an existential crisis. He read philosophy, grappling with questions about the meaning of life. He went through a period of depression, questioning why anything mattered. The answer he found came from Douglas Adams. We might not know the ultimate question, but we can try to expand the scope and scale of consciousness so that we're better able to ask the questions. For Elon, this meant that the goal of life was to increase humanity's knowledge and capability, to ensure that consciousness could continue and expand. This might sound abstract, but for Elon, it became a concrete mission. If humanity was going to survive long term, it needed to become a multiplanetary species. If we stayed on one planet, eventually an asteroid or some other catastrophe would wipe us out. Therefore, the most important thing to work on was making life multiplanetary. At 15 years old, Elon Musk had found his life's purpose. But first, he had to escape South Africa. Mandatory military service loomed, and Elon wanted no part of enforcing apartheid. More importantly, South Africa felt too small for his ambitions. He wanted to be in America, the land of innovation and opportunity. There was just one problem: getting there. The solution came through his mother's Canadian citizenship. In 1989, just before turning 18, Elon applied for a Canadian passport through his mother. It was granted. Without telling his father, Elon bought a one-way ticket and left South Africa. He arrived in Canada in June of 1989 with little money, no connections, and big dreams. He would never live in South Africa again. Elon arrived in Canada with about $2,500, a backpack, and the phone numbers of some distant relatives he'd never met. It was not a smooth landing. He called his relatives. Some didn't return his calls. He travelled across Canada doing odd jobs, shoveling grain in silos, cutting logs, cleaning out the boiler room of a lumber mill. These were hard, dirty jobs, but Elon didn't complain. He was free and he was moving toward his goals. During this time, Elon reconnected with his mother and siblings who had also immigrated to Canada. He enrolled at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, partly because it was cheaper than American universities, and partly because he calculated it would be easier to transfer to the United States from a Canadian university than from South Africa. At Queen's, Elon began to come out of his shell. He was still awkward, still intensely focused on his studies, but he was trying to develop social skills. He learned that to succeed in business, you needed to be able to sell your ideas, to convince people, to network. It didn't come naturally to him. He was fundamentally an introvert and an engineer, but he worked at it systematically, the way he worked at everything. Elon studied physics and business, driven by his belief that understanding the fundamental laws of the universe was crucial to solving big problems. Physics taught you to reason from first principles, to break down complex problems into basic elements and rebuild them. This approach would become Musk's signature methodology in business. At Queen's, Elon met Justine Wilson, an aspiring writer. He pursued her persistently, some might say relentlessly. She rejected him initially, but Elon kept trying. He would show up at her dorm with ice cream. He would engage her in long conversations about books and ideas. Eventually, she agreed to date him. They would later marry, though the relationship would be complicated and ultimately tragic in some ways. After 2 years at Queen's, Elon achieved his goal. He transferred to the University of Pennsylvania in 1992. He had made it to America. He pursued a dual degree in physics from the College of Arts and Sciences and economics from the Wharton School. The combination was deliberate. He wanted to understand how the universe worked and how to build businesses that could change it. At Penn, Elon and a friend rented a large house and turned it into an unofficial nightclub on weekends, charging admission to cover rent. It was entrepreneurial thinking applied to student life. Elon didn't drink or party himself. He would walk around with a Coke, observing, but he understood the business opportunity. Elon graduated from Penn in 1995 with his 2 degrees. He was accepted into a PhD program in physics at Stanford University, one of the world's premier institutions. He had achieved what seemed like the perfect path. An advanced degree from Stanford, a career in research, the respect of academia. He enrolled in the program and moved to California. He lasted 2 days. The internet revolution was exploding. It was 1995, and Netscape had just gone public. The web was transforming from a niche tool for academics into a commercial platform with unlimited potential. Elon looked at what was happening and made a calculation. He could spend years getting a PhD that might lead to academic papers that might have some impact. Or he could drop out and build internet companies that could change the world immediately. The choice was obvious. Elon dropped out of Stanford, to the shock of everyone who knew him. He had worked so hard to get there, and he was walking away after 2 days. But Elon had made his decision based on first principles reasoning. Where could he have the most impact? The answer was not in a lab. It was in Silicon Valley, building companies. He was 24 years old, had student debt, no job, and no real plan. But he had something more valuable. He had vision, work ethic, and the courage to bet everything on himself. Elon's first company was born from a simple observation. Newspapers were dying, and they didn't even know it. In 1995, most newspapers had no online presence. Elon and his brother Kimball, who had joined him in California, saw an opportunity. They would create an online city guide that would help newspapers establish a web presence and provide local business listings, maps, and directions. They called it Zip2. They had no money, so they rented a small office and literally lived there. They slept on the floor, showered at the YMCA, and worked around the clock. Elon coded the website himself, teaching himself web programming as he went. They ate cheaply and poured every dollar back into the business. Getting customers was brutal. Elon and Kimball would cold call newspapers, trying to convince executives who barely understood the internet that they needed a web presence. Most hung up or laughed at them, but gradually they started landing clients. The New York Times Company became a client. Knight Ridder, a major newspaper chain, became an investor. As Zip2 grew, venture capitalists came in with funding, but also with conditions. They didn't think Elon, with no business experience, should be CEO. They brought in professional management. Elon was furious but powerless. He owned shares but not control. It was a painful lesson about equity, control, and corporate governance that he would never forget. Despite the frustration, Zip2 succeeded. By 1999, the company was valuable enough to be an acquisition target. Compaq Computer bought Zip2 for $307 million. Elon, who owned about 7%, received $22 million. At 27 years old, he was suddenly wealthy beyond what he'd imagined as a kid in South Africa. Many people would have retired, or at least taken a break. Elon took a week off, bought a McLaren F1 supercar, one of the fastest and most expensive cars in the world, and started planning his next company. The McLaren was an indulgence, a symbol that the poor kid from South Africa had made it. He famously crashed it while showing off to investor Peter Thiel, an incident that was captured on camera. The car wasn't insured. Elon's next venture was X.com, an online financial services and payment company. The idea was radical for 1999. Handle all your banking online, transfer money via email, eliminate the traditional banking infrastructure. Elon invested $12 million of his own money into X.com. The timing was perfect. E-commerce was exploding, and sending payments online was clunky and difficult. X.com offered a solution. But they had competition. A company called Confinity, founded by Peter Thiel and Max Levchin, which had created a product called PayPal for transferring money between Palm Pilots. After initial competition, X.com and Confinity merged in 2000. The merger was contentious and political. Elon was CEO initially, but while he was on a delayed honeymoon in Australia with Justine, they had married in 2000, the board executed a coup and replaced him with Peter Thiel. The reasons were complex: disagreements about technology platforms, concerns about Elon's management style, corporate politics. Elon was out as CEO of his own company again. It stung badly, but he remained the largest shareholder and stayed involved. The merged company eventually adopted the PayPal name for its flagship product because PayPal had stronger brand recognition than X.com. PayPal grew explosively. It became the payment method of choice for eBay users. By 2002, PayPal had millions of users and was processing billions of dollars in transactions. eBay wanted to own the payment infrastructure for its platform. So in July 2002, eBay bought PayPal for $1.5 billion. Elon owned 11.7% of PayPal. The sale gave him $165 million after taxes. At 31 years old, he had sold 2 companies and had more money than he could ever spend. He could retire to a beach somewhere and live in luxury forever. Instead, he decided to risk everything on the 2 hardest industries in the world: rockets and cars. Why? Because those were the industries that could make humanity multi-planetary and sustainable. Making money was never the point for Elon. Money was just a tool to achieve the mission he'd identified as a teenager: expanding consciousness and ensuring humanity's long-term survival. Most of his friends and advisors thought he was crazy. Both the aerospace and automotive industries were littered with the corpses of failed startups. But Elon had done the math. He believed both were possible if you approached them from first principles. He was about to find out if he was right. In 2002, Elon Musk decided to buy a rocket. Not rent one, not hitch a ride, buy one outright. His plan was to send a greenhouse to Mars, create the first life on another planet, and inspire NASA and the public to care about space exploration again. The project was called Mars Oasis. Elon flew to Russia 3 times to negotiate buying refurbished ICBMs that could be converted into launch vehicles. The Russians thought he was a joke, a young internet millionaire playing at being a space entrepreneur. They quoted him absurd prices and, on one occasion, one of them literally spit on Elon's shoes. On the flight back from the 3rd trip, Elon had an epiphany. He pulled out his laptop and started building a spreadsheet. He calculated the raw material costs of building a rocket: aluminum alloys, titanium, copper, carbon fiber, The materials cost only about 2% of the typical rocket price. The rest was inefficiency, bureaucracy, and profit margins. What if, instead of buying a rocket, he built a rocket company? What if he applied first principles thinking to aerospace? What if he could build rockets for a fraction of the current cost by manufacturing most components in-house and reusing them? It was an insane idea. Aerospace was dominated by giants like Boeing and Lockheed Martin, companies with decades of experience and billions in government contracts. The last successful American rocket startup had been founded in the 1960s. Many had tried and failed since then. Conventional wisdom said it was impossible. Elon decided to do it anyway. Space Exploration Technologies, SpaceX, was founded in June 2002. Elon invested $100 million of his own money, about 2/3 of his PayPal proceeds. He recruited top engineers, many from aerospace giants, offering them equity and the chance to work on something revolutionary. They set up headquarters in a warehouse in El Segundo, California. The goal was ambitious but clear: build a reliable, low-cost rocket that could eventually take humans to Mars. The first step was the Falcon 1, a small rocket designed to launch small satellites into orbit. If they could make that work, they could scale up. Everything went wrong, repeatedly. The first Falcon 1 launch, in March 2006, failed 63 seconds into flight due to a fuel leak. The second launch, in March 2007, failed due to a stage separation problem. The third launch, in August 2008, failed when the first and second stages collided. Each failure cost millions of dollars and years of work. By mid-2008, SpaceX was on the verge of bankruptcy. Elon had spent nearly all his money. Employees hadn't been paid. They had enough money for one more launch, the fourth Falcon 1. If it failed, SpaceX would die. September 28, 2008. Kwajalein Atoll, Marshall Islands. The fourth Falcon 1 sat on the launch pad. Everyone at SpaceX knew this was it. The rocket lifted off. First stage, successful. Stage separation, successful. Second stage, successful. Payload orbit, successful. SpaceX had become the first privately funded company to successfully launch a liquid-fueled rocket into orbit. The employees at SpaceX headquarters erupted in celebration. Elon, exhausted and emotional, could barely speak. SpaceX had survived. But survival wasn't success yet. SpaceX needed customers and revenue. Then, on December 23, 2008, Christmas Eve, basically, NASA awarded SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract to resupply the International Space Station. It was one of the greatest Christmas presents in business history. SpaceX was saved. Over the next decade, SpaceX achieved milestone after milestone. The Falcon 9, a larger rocket capable of carrying significant payloads, became operational in 2010. The Dragon spacecraft began flying cargo to the ISS in 2012. In 2015, SpaceX landed a Falcon 9 first stage vertically for the first time, proving that reusable rockets were possible. That landing was revolutionary. For decades, rockets were single-use. You built them, launched them, and threw them away. It was like throwing away an airplane after every flight. Elon's vision was to make rockets reusable, drastically reducing launch costs. When that first stage landed on the landing pad, upright and intact, it opened up a new era in spaceflight. By 2020, SpaceX was launching astronauts to the ISS on the Crew Dragon spacecraft, the first private company to send humans to orbit. The company had thousands of employees, was valued at tens of billions, and had fundamentally disrupted the aerospace industry. Every major space agency and company had to respond to SpaceX's innovations. But SpaceX was always just a means to an end for Elon. The real goal was Mars. He unveiled plans for Starship, a fully reusable spacecraft. designed to carry 100 people to Mars at a time. It was audacious, maybe impossible. But then again, people had said the same thing about reusable rockets. Elon's vision was clear. Make humanity a multi-planetary species within his lifetime. Build a self-sustaining city on Mars. Ensure that consciousness could survive even if Earth was destroyed. It sounded like science fiction, but so had everything SpaceX had already accomplished. While SpaceX was fighting for survival, Elon was simultaneously building another impossible company, Tesla. Actually, Elon didn't found Tesla, he funded it and transformed it, though the question of who really founded Tesla would become a bitter legal dispute. Tesla Motors was incorporated in July 2003 by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning, two engineers who wanted to build an electric sports car. They needed funding and approached Elon in 2004. Elon was intrigued. He had been interested in electric vehicles for years, seeing them as crucial to sustainable energy and reducing dependence on fossil fuels. Elon led Tesla's Series A funding round, investing $7.5 million of his own money. He became chairman of the board and the company's largest shareholder. From the beginning, Elon was deeply involved in product decisions, pushing for performance and design that would make electric cars desirable, not just practical. The auto industry thought Tesla was a joke. Electric cars had been tried many times and failed. They were slow, had limited range, and looked terrible. Why would anyone buy one instead of a gasoline car? Every major automaker had abandoned serious electric vehicle development. Tesla's strategy was clever. Instead of starting with cheap, practical cars for the mass market, they would start at the top, build an expensive, high-performance sports car for early adopters who cared about performance and were willing to pay for new technology, use the profits to develop a cheaper sedan, use those profits to develop a mass-market car. Eventually, electric cars would be competitive with gas cars at all price points. The first car was the Tesla Roadster, based on a Lotus Elise chassis but with a custom electric powertrain. It would accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 4 seconds and have a range of over 200 miles, specs that seemed impossible for an electric car. Development was a nightmare. Everything took longer and cost more than projected. The relationship between Eberhard and Musk deteriorated over strategy and execution issues. In 2007, the board, at Elon's urging, replaced Eberhard as CEO. The move was messy and led to lawsuits and bitter recriminations about who founded Tesla and who deserved credit. Elon insisted he was a founder. Eberhard disagreed. Eventually, a settlement allowed 5 people, including both Elon and Eberhard, to call themselves co-founders. The Roadster finally started production in 2008. It was beautiful, fast, and actually worked. Celebrities bought them. George Clooney owned one. Suddenly, electric cars were cool. But Tesla was burning through cash at an alarming rate. 2008 was the worst year of Elon's life. SpaceX had failed 3 rocket launches and was nearly bankrupt. Tesla was hemorrhaging money and couldn't raise capital because the financial crisis had frozen credit markets. Elon was going through a painful divorce from Justine, his first wife. They had lost their first child, Nevada, to sudden infant death syndrome when he was only 10 weeks old, a tragedy that devastated both of them. They had 5 more children through IVF, twins and then triplets, but the marriage couldn't survive the grief, the stress, and Elon's all-consuming work schedule. Elon faced a terrible choice. He had enough money to save either SpaceX or Tesla, but not both. If he split the money, both would probably die. He decided to split it anyway. He put his last remaining money into both companies and begged friends and investors to contribute more. On Christmas Eve 2008, the NASA contract saved SpaceX. On Christmas Eve, Tesla closed a financing round at the last possible moment, keeping the company alive. Elon became CEO of Tesla in 2008. Under his leadership, Tesla developed the Model S, a luxury sedan designed to compete with BMW and Mercedes while being fully electric. The Model S needed to prove that electric cars could be practical for everyday use, not just toys for the wealthy. The Model S launched in 2012 to rave reviews. It was named Motor Trend's Car of the Year. It achieved the highest safety rating ever recorded. It was fast, had over 200 miles of range, and was beautiful. Suddenly, traditional automakers realized electric vehicles were a real threat. But Tesla's survival was never guaranteed. The company faced constant skepticism from Wall Street, attacks from short sellers who bet the stock would crash, and production problems that brought it to the brink of bankruptcy multiple times. Elon worked insane hours, sleeping on the factory floor, personally troubleshooting production line issues, doing whatever it took to keep the company alive. In 2010, Tesla became the first American car company to go public since Ford in 1956. The IPO raised $226 million. Tesla had survived its near-death experiences and was now a public company valued at over $1 billion. Elon had a master plan for Tesla that he articulated publicly in 2006. Build an expensive low-volume sports car, the Roadster. Use that money to build a medium-priced, medium-volume sedan, the Model S. Use that money to build an affordable, high-volume car, the Model 3. And throughout, develop sustainable energy generation and storage solutions. It was a clear roadmap. By 2010, they had executed steps 1 and 2. Now came the hard part, making electric cars affordable for the average person. But first, Tesla needed to expand the Model S line. In 2015, Tesla introduced the Model X, an SUV with distinctive falcon wing doors. It was Tesla's attempt to capture the SUV market, which was hugely profitable. The Model X had production problems. Those falcon wing doors were complicated, but it showed Tesla could compete in multiple segments. More importantly, Tesla was building the infrastructure to support electric vehicles. The supercharger network, which began deploying in 2012, allowed Tesla owners to charge their cars quickly on long trips. This addressed the main practical objection to electric cars: range anxiety. With superchargers placed strategically along major routes, you could drive a Tesla across the country. Tesla also acquired SolarCity in 2016, a solar panel company founded by Elon's cousins. The acquisition was controversial. Critics called it a bailout, using Tesla shareholder money to rescue a failing company. But Elon had a vision of integrated sustainable energy: solar panels to generate electricity, battery packs to store it, and electric cars to use it. SolarCity fit into that vision. Meanwhile, SpaceX continued its march toward Mars. The company was launching satellites for commercial customers, resupplying the ISS, and landing rockets regularly. Each landing that once seemed impossible had become routine. SpaceX announced plans for Starlink, a constellation of thousands of satellites that would provide global internet coverage, creating a revenue stream to fund Mars missions. Elon also launched or invested in several other ventures during this period. He co-founded OpenAI in 2015, a non-profit focused on developing artificial general intelligence safely. He started Neuralink in 2016 to develop brain-computer interfaces. He founded the Boring Company in 2016 to dig tunnels and solve traffic congestion. Critics said Elon was spreading himself too thin, that no one could run multiple companies simultaneously. Elon's response was to work even harder. He developed a reputation for sleeping at his factories, working 100-hour weeks, and being involved in technical details at every company. He was not just a CEO delegating to subordinates, he was an engineer who understood the products at a fundamental level. This hands-on approach had advantages and disadvantages. On the positive side, Elon could make decisions quickly and push through bureaucracy. He understood the technology and could spot problems others missed. On the negative side, he could be difficult to work for, changing his mind suddenly, demanding the impossible, and creating a high-stress environment. Employee turnover at Elon's companies was high. People burned out. Some called him a genius and inspirational leader. Others called him a tyrant. The truth was probably both. Elon demanded extreme performance because he believed the stakes, climate change, making humanity multi-planetary, were existential. If you didn't share that urgency, working for Elon was hell. But by 2016, results were undeniable. SpaceX was the world's leading private space company. Tesla was transforming the automotive industry. Every major automaker was now developing electric vehicles in response to Tesla's success. Elon's net worth was in the billions. He had gone from sleeping on office floors and nearly bankrupt to being one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. But Elon's biggest challenges were still ahead: scaling Tesla to mass production, getting humans to Mars, and navigating his increasingly public and controversial persona. 2017 was supposed to be Tesla's breakthrough year. The Model 3, Tesla's mass-market car priced around $35,000, was scheduled to launch. This was the car that would take Tesla from a niche luxury brand to a major automaker. The company had hundreds of thousands of reservations from customers who had put down deposits. Instead, 2017 became what Elon called production hell. Tesla couldn't manufacture Model 3s fast enough. The automated production line Elon had envisioned didn't work. Robots couldn't handle certain tasks. The assembly process kept breaking down. Cars were being built in a tent in the parking lot. Elon personally moved into the Tesla factory, sleeping on a couch in a conference room. He worked around the clock, troubleshooting problems, redesigning processes, pushing employees to the limit. It was brutal. Tesla was burning through cash. Wall Street analysts predicted bankruptcy. Short sellers bet billions that Tesla would fail. In March 2018, a Model X crashed on autopilot, killing the driver. It raised serious questions about Tesla's self-driving technology and whether the company was overstating its capabilities. The National Transportation Safety Board investigated. Critics said Elon was reckless, releasing beta software that put lives at risk. The stress affected Elon visibly. In interviews, he appeared exhausted, emotional, and erratic. In August 2018, he tweeted that he was considering taking Tesla private at $420 per share and had funding secured. The tweet caused chaos. Tesla's stock price jumped. The SEC investigated, arguing that Elon had manipulated the market with false statements. He didn't actually have funding secured. The SEC sued Elon for securities fraud. The settlement forced Elon to step down as Tesla's chairman, pay a $20 million fine, and have his tweets reviewed by Tesla lawyers before posting. It was a humiliating climb down for someone as independent as Elon. But it also kept him as CEO, which was what mattered most. Through sheer force of will and round-the-clock work, Tesla survived production hell. By late 2018, the company was producing thousands of Model 3s per week. In 2019, Tesla became profitable. The critics who predicted bankruptcy were proven wrong. Tesla's stock price began to soar. In 2020, despite the COVID pandemic, Tesla's market capitalization exceeded every other automaker on Earth. By 2021, Tesla was worth more than the next 10 largest automakers combined. Elon became the richest person in the world, with a net worth exceeding $200 billion. SpaceX achieved milestone after milestone. In May 2020, SpaceX launched NASA astronauts to the ISS on the Crew Dragon, the first American orbital human spaceflight since the Space Shuttle retired. The moment was historic. America could send its own astronauts to space again, and they were flying on a private company's spacecraft. Starship, the massive rocket designed to carry humans to Mars, began test flights in 2020 and 2021. Many exploded spectacularly on landing. Elon cheerfully tweeted, "RUD, rapid unscheduled disassembly," after each explosion, but each failure provided data. By late 2021, Starship was landing successfully. The path to Mars seemed clearer than ever. Then, in April 2022, Elon did something unexpected. He bought Twitter. Actually, it was more complicated than that. Elon had become increasingly active on Twitter, using it to communicate directly with millions of followers, make announcements, share memes, and pick fights with critics. He loved Twitter, but hated how it was run. He thought it censored too much, had too many bots, and wasn't living up to its potential as a digital town square for free speech. In April 2022, Elon offered to buy Twitter for $44 billion. Twitter's board initially resisted, then accepted. Then Elon tried to back out, claiming Twitter had misrepresented how many accounts were bots. Twitter sued to force the sale. The legal battle was ugly and public. In October 2022, Elon completed the purchase. He paid $44 billion for Twitter, financed partly by selling Tesla stock and partly by loans. He immediately fired most of Twitter's executives and then laid off about half of the company's employees. He eliminated remote work, demanding employees commit to hardcore hours or leave. Many left. Elon renamed Twitter to X in 2023, fulfilling a long-held dream of creating an everything app called X. The changes were chaotic. Verification systems changed multiple times. Content moderation policies shifted dramatically. Advertisers fled, concerned about brand safety. Critics said Elon was destroying Twitter. Supporters said he was saving free speech. The Twitter acquisition was polarizing. It made Elon the world's most visible advocate for free speech absolutism, or, depending on your perspective, a reckless billionaire platforming extremism. His political statements became more controversial. He clashed with governments over content moderation. His every tweet was analyzed and criticized. By 2023, Elon was simultaneously the world's richest person, CEO of multiple revolutionary companies, and one of the most controversial figures on the planet. As of 2026, Elon Musk stands at a unique point in history. His companies are collectively worth hundreds of billions of dollars. SpaceX has revolutionized spaceflight and is on track to land humans on Mars within the next decade. Tesla has forced the entire automotive industry to pivot to electric vehicles, accelerating the transition to sustainable energy by perhaps decades. Neuralink is developing brain-computer interfaces that could help paralyzed people walk and blind people see. The Boring Company is digging tunnels to solve urban traffic congestion. And X, formerly Twitter, remains one of the world's most influential communication platforms. But Elon Musk is also one of the most polarizing figures alive. Understanding why requires looking at both his vision and his methods, his achievements and his controversies, his brilliance and his flaws. The vision. At the core of everything Elon does is a coherent worldview developed in his teenage years. Humanity faces existential risks, and the solution is to expand consciousness, both in terms of where it exists, multiple planets, and what it can do enhanced intelligence through AI and brain-computer interfaces. Climate change threatens civilization. The solution is sustainable energy, solar power, battery storage, and electric transportation. That's why Tesla matters, not to sell cars, but to prove that sustainable transport is viable and desirable, forcing the entire industry to follow. Asteroid impacts, nuclear war, or other catastrophes could wipe out life on Earth. The solution is to become multi-planetary. That's why SpaceX matters, not to launch satellites, though that funds the mission, but to make life multi-planetary before it's too late. Artificial intelligence will become more powerful than humans. The solution is to merge with AI rather than compete with it. That's why Neuralink matters, to create a symbiosis between human and artificial intelligence. This vision is either inspirational or grandiose, depending on your perspective. Supporters see Elon as a visionary, working on humanity's biggest challenges. Critics see him as a megalomaniac with a messiah complex. Both might be right. The methods. Elon's approach to business and engineering is distinctive and has been called first principles thinking. Instead of accepting conventional wisdom, you break problems down to fundamental truths and rebuild from there. Why are rockets so expensive? Because everyone says they have to be. But what's the actual material cost? Only a tiny fraction of the sale price. Therefore, rockets can be built much cheaper if you manufacture in-house and eliminate inefficiency. Why are electric cars impractical? Because everyone says batteries are too expensive and heavy. But what's the cost of battery materials per kilowatt hour? It's dropping exponentially. Therefore, electric cars will soon be cheaper than gas cars. This approach has enabled Elon to succeed in industries where everyone said success was impossible. But it also makes him dismissive of experts who tell him something can't be done. Sometimes the experts are wrong, and Elon proves it. Sometimes the experts are right, and Elon learns painful lessons. Elon's work ethic is legendary and controversial. He regularly works 80 to 100-hour weeks. He expects his employees to do the same. He believes that revolutionary companies require revolutionary commitment. If you want to work 9 to 5 and go home, work somewhere else. This creates a culture that accomplishes remarkable things but also burns people out. Former Tesla and SPACEX employees tell stories of incredible innovation and crushing stress. Some say Elon brought out their best work. Others say he demanded the impossible and berated people when they failed to deliver miracles. The controversies. Elon's public persona has become increasingly controversial, especially since his acquisition of Twitter, X. His tweets have landed him in legal trouble, moved stock prices, and sparked international incidents. He's been accused of market manipulation, spreading misinformation, and amplifying extremist voices. His political statements have shifted over time. He once supported Democrats, voting for Obama and Clinton. By 2022, he was criticizing Democrats and expressing support for conservative positions. He says he's a moderate, that Democrats have moved too far left. Critics say he's moved right because of his wealth and self-interest. Elon's approach to free speech on X has been contentious. He restored accounts that were previously banned, including controversial figures. He reduced content moderation, arguing that free speech should be absolute except where legally prohibited. Advertisers fled, concerned about their brands appearing next to extremist content. Elon responded by suing advertisers, arguing they were engaging in an illegal boycott. His comments on various topics, from COVID lockdowns to transgender issues to immigration, have sparked intense backlash. Elon seems to enjoy being provocative, posting memes and making statements he knows will upset people. His defenders say he's refusing to be politically correct. His critics say he's using his platform irresponsibly. The workplace culture at his companies has faced scrutiny. Reports of sexual harassment, racial discrimination, and unsafe working conditions at Tesla factories have led to lawsuits and investigations. Elon's response has been to dismiss complaints as exaggerated or motivated by short sellers trying to damage Tesla's stock price. His personal life has been tabloid fodder. He's had multiple marriages and divorces. He has at least 11 children with 3 different women, including twins with a Neuralink executive. He stated that declining birth rates are an existential threat and that he's trying to set a good example by having many children. Critics note the irony of the world's richest man preaching about population growth while most people struggle to afford one child. The personality. Understanding Elon requires understanding his psychology. He's described having Asperger's syndrome, now part of autism spectrum disorder, which he discussed publicly when he hosted Saturday Night Live in 2021. This helps explain his social awkwardness, his difficulty reading social cues, his intense focus, and his directness that can come across as rude. Elon is clearly brilliant. His ability to learn new fields quickly, understand complex technical problems, and see solutions others miss is exceptional. But he's also driven by deep insecurities and fears. The childhood bullying, the difficult relationship with his father, the near bankruptcies, these experiences have left scars. He seems to have an almost pathological need to prove doubters wrong. When people say something is impossible, Elon takes it as a challenge. When critics short Tesla stock or predict SpaceX will fail, Elon works harder to prove them wrong. This drive has accomplished remarkable things, but also led him to take unnecessary risks and pick unnecessary fights. Elon can be charming and funny, especially in interviews where he discusses technical topics he's passionate about. He can also be petty and vindictive, publicly attacking critics and journalists who write negative stories about him or his companies. He's admitted to struggling with depression and using prescription medication. The pressure of running multiple companies, being constantly in the public eye, and carrying the weight of his self-imposed mission to save humanity clearly takes a toll. The impact? Whatever one thinks of Elon personally, his impact is undeniable. Before Tesla, electric vehicles were niche products that most people ignored. Now, every major automaker is pivoting to electric. Tesla forced that transition, probably accelerating it by a decade or more. That will have enormous implications for climate change and energy use. Before SpaceX, launching payloads to orbit cost tens of thousands of dollars per kilogram. SpaceX has driven costs down by an order of magnitude through reusable rockets. The company launches more mass to orbit than all other countries and companies combined. It's made space access cheaper and more frequent, enabling new possibilities for satellite internet, space tourism, and deep space exploration. The idea of landing humans on Mars, which seemed like distant science fiction before Elon started talking about it, now seems plausible within 10 to 20 years. SpaceX's Starship, if successful, will be the most powerful rocket ever built and capable of carrying 100 people to Mars. That's not guaranteed to work, but it's closer to reality than ever before. Elon's companies have created hundreds of thousands of jobs and trained a generation of engineers in cutting-edge technologies. SpaceX alumni have founded dozens of space startups. Tesla veterans have spread electric vehicle expertise throughout the industry. The ripple effects of his companies extend far beyond their direct activities. The criticisms. Critics argue that Elon's wealth, over $200 billion at its peak, is obscene and that no one should have that much money. They point out that his wealth comes partly from government subsidies, tax breaks, and contracts, meaning taxpayers have funded much of his success. They note that he's hostile to unions and has fought efforts to organize workers at his factories. They argue that his companies benefit from his personal wealth and tolerance for risk in ways that other entrepreneurs can't replicate, making him a poor model for how innovation happens. Some argue that Elon's focus on Mars is misguided, that we should fix Earth rather than plan to abandon it. They say that space exploration is a vanity project for billionaires, while Earth faces urgent problems like poverty, inequality, and climate change. Others question whether Tesla has really accelerated the transition to sustainable energy or just created luxury electric cars for the wealthy. They note that Tesla's carbon footprint, including manufacturing and charging infrastructure, is still significant. Critics of X argue that Elon's free speech absolutism has made the platform more toxic, spreading misinformation and hate speech. They say that his personal political statements have alienated large portions of the user base and damaged the platform's value. The defense. Supporters counter that Elon's wealth is mostly unrealized. It's Tesla and SpaceX stock, not cash. If he sold it, the value would crash. His wealth represents the market's valuation of companies he built that are changing the world. They argue that government support for Tesla and SpaceX isn't a handout. These are contracts for services rendered. NASA pays SpaceX because SpaceX launches payloads cheaper and better than anyone else. That's not welfare. That's capitalism working. They note that Elon has risked his own fortune multiple times. In 2008, he could have kept his money and let SpaceX and Tesla die. Instead, he invested his last dollars and saved both companies. He's not a trust fund baby coasting on inherited wealth. He built his fortune from nothing and risked it all repeatedly. Regarding Mars, supporters argue that making life multiplanetary isn't about abandoning Earth, it's insurance. Just as you buy life insurance while trying to stay alive, humanity should become multiplanetary while working to fix Earth. The two aren't mutually exclusive. On X and free speech, supporters argue that Elon is defending fundamental principles against a culture of censorship. They believe that open debate, even when ugly, is better than corporate-controlled narratives. They see Elon as fighting against groupthink and authoritarianism. The complexity. The truth about Elon Musk is that he's neither purely hero nor villain. He's a complex, contradictory human being, doing extraordinary things in questionable ways. He's a genius engineer who understands rocket science and vehicle manufacturing at a deep level. He's also a CEO who sometimes makes impulsive decisions based on emotion. He's a visionary who's advancing sustainable energy and space exploration. He's also a billionaire who's fought against workers' rights and accountability. He's someone who's risked everything multiple times for his principles. He's also someone who's spread misinformation and attacked critics vindictively. He's accomplished things many said were impossible. He's also failed spectacularly at some of his goals and hurt people along the way. This complexity makes Elon difficult to evaluate. You can acknowledge his achievements while criticizing his methods. You can admire his vision while condemning his behavior. You can believe his companies are making the world better while thinking he personally is making it worse. As this biography is being written in 2026, Elon Musk is 54 years old. If he lives an average lifespan, he has perhaps 25 to 30 more years. The question is, what will he accomplish in that time? And what will his ultimate legacy be? SpaceX and Mars. SpaceX's trajectory seems clearest. Starship is flying regularly, deploying Starlink satellites and preparing for human missions. NASA has contracted SpaceX to land astronauts on the moon as part of the Artemis program, scheduled for 2026 or 2027. This will be humanity's first lunar landing since 1972. After the moon comes Mars. Elon has stated repeatedly that SpaceX will send humans to Mars in the late 2020s or early 2030s. Whether this timeline is realistic depends on solving numerous technical challenges: life support for multi-month journeys, radiation protection, landing enormous payloads on Mars, and producing fuel on Mars for the return journey. Even if the timeline slips, the fundamental question isn't whether SpaceX will attempt to reach Mars, but whether they'll succeed and whether it will matter. A few people visiting Mars briefly would be historic, but not transformative. Elon's vision is a self-sustaining city of 1 million people on Mars. That would take decades and trillions of dollars. Will Elon live to see humans walking on Mars? Probably. Will he live to see a Martian city? Unlikely. But he may set the process in motion, creating the technology and infrastructure that future generations will build upon. Tesla and sustainable energy. Tesla's mission, accelerating sustainable transport, is already largely accomplished. Every major automaker is now producing electric vehicles. By 2035 or 2040, most new cars sold globally will be electric, even without Tesla. But Tesla's next challenge is autonomous driving. Elon has promised that Tesla will achieve full self-driving capability for years. The technology has improved, but isn't there yet. If Tesla succeeds in creating truly autonomous vehicles, it could transform transportation more radically than electrification alone. If they fail or another company succeeds first, Tesla becomes just another car company, valuable but not revolutionary. Tesla's energy business, solar panels and battery storage, has grown, but isn't yet profitable at scale. For Tesla to truly be a sustainable energy company rather than a car company, this needs to become a larger part of the business. Elon's control of Tesla depends on maintaining shareholder support. His behavior on X and his political statements have made some Tesla customers uncomfortable. If Tesla's board or shareholders decide Elon is more liability than asset, he could lose control of the company he's led for nearly 2 decades. Neuralink and AI. Neuralink is the wild card. The technology is real. The company has demonstrated brain-computer interfaces in animals and has begun human trials. But the path from experimental technology to mainstream product is long and uncertain. If Neuralink succeeds, it could help people with paralysis, blindness, and neurological conditions. It could enable direct brain-to-computer communication, radically expanding human capability. Or it could fail due to technical limitations, safety concerns, or public rejection of brain implants. Elon's concerns about AI risks are sincere. He's warned that artificial intelligence could be an existential threat to humanity if developed without proper safeguards. This is why he co-founded OpenAI, though he later departed the organization due to disagreements about its direction. The irony is that Elon's companies, particularly Tesla, are advancing AI capabilities. Tesla's self-driving technology requires sophisticated AI. If AI does pose existential risks, Elon is both warning about it and advancing it. X and public discourse. X's future is uncertain. The platform has lost significant advertising revenue under Elon's ownership. User growth has slowed. Competitors are emerging. Elon has said X will become an everything app, combining social media, payments, banking, and more, essentially recreating his vision for the original X.com from the early 2000s. Whether this vision succeeds depends on execution and whether users want an everything app. It also depends on whether governments regulate X more strictly, potentially forcing changes to Elon's content moderation policies. X's importance may be less about its business success and more about its influence on public discourse. As long as X remains influential, Elon's voice and policies shape how millions of people communicate and what information they see. The personal equation. Elon's personal life will continue to be scrutinized. His relationships, his parenting, his health, all will be public fodder. He said he wants to have more children to address demographic decline. He's hinted at health issues related to stress and his demanding schedule. The question many people ask is whether Elon will burn out or whether he'll moderate his approach. So far, no evidence suggests he's slowing down. If anything, he seems to be accelerating, starting new companies, taking on new challenges, working longer hours. This pace isn't sustainable indefinitely. Either Elon will find a way to delegate more and work less, or his health will force the issue, or he'll continue at this pace until it kills him. Given his personality and his sense of urgency about existential risks, the latter seems most likely. The legacy question. How will history remember Elon Musk? The answer depends partly on what happens next. If SpaceX successfully establishes a presence on Mars, Elon will be remembered as the person who made humanity multiplanetary, one of the most significant achievements in human history. He'll be compared to Columbus or Magellan, an explorer who opened new frontiers, for better or worse. If Tesla's influence accelerates the end of fossil fuel transportation, helping avoid the worst of climate change, Elon will be remembered as a crucial figure in the sustainability transition. He'll be compared to Henry Ford, someone who transformed how we move and what that means for society. If either company fails dramatically, if SpaceX has a catastrophic accident killing astronauts, if Tesla's autonomous driving causes deaths or financial collapse, Elon's legacy will be far more mixed. He'll be remembered as someone whose ambition outstripped his judgment. If X descends into a toxic wasteland or becomes a tool for authoritarian control, Elon will be remembered as someone who destroyed a valuable public square for his ego and ideology. Most likely, the legacy will be mixed. Elon will be remembered as a brilliant, flawed, controversial figure who accomplished remarkable things through force of will and engineering skill, but also caused harm through recklessness and arrogance. Elon Musk's story is, fundamentally, about refusing to accept the world as it is. As a child in South Africa, he refused to accept that his circumstances defined his future. As an entrepreneur, he refused to accept that electric cars and reusable rockets were impossible. As a public figure, he refuses to accept limits on what he can say or do. This refusal to accept limits is his greatest strength and his greatest weakness. It's enabled him to accomplish things that more cautious people never would have attempted. It's also led him to take unnecessary risks, alienate allies, and create unnecessary controversies. The question of whether Elon Musk is good for humanity is genuinely complex. His companies have advanced sustainable energy and space exploration, creating enormous value and inspiring millions. His behavior has also caused harm, spread misinformation, and made public discourse more toxic. Perhaps the most honest assessment is that Elon Musk is exactly what his childhood reading predicted. A character from a science fiction novel, someone larger than life, whose actions have consequences beyond what normal humans experience. In science fiction, such characters are neither purely heroic nor purely villainous. They're forces of nature that drive the plot forward, for good or ill. Elon believes he's racing against time, that climate change, AI, and other existential risks require urgent action, that we may only have decades to make humanity sustainable and multiplanetary, that normal caution and deliberation are luxuries we can't afford. Is he right? We won't know for decades. If humanity thrives on multiple planets a century from now, if electric vehicles are ubiquitous, if brain-computer interfaces enhance rather than diminish our humanity, then Elon's urgency will have been justified. If we've squandered our future through haste and recklessness, then caution would have been wiser. What's undeniable is that Elon Musk has shaped the early 21st century more than almost any other single person. He's changed how we think about space, about transportation, about energy, about the limits of what's possible. He's shown that individual determination can still move mountains in an age of complex systems and institutional inertia. The boy who was beaten on the stairs in Pretoria became the man building rockets to Mars. The dropout from Stanford became the richest person on Earth. The outsider who never fit in became the person everyone is watching. Elon Musk is not relatable, not normal, not easy to understand or categorize. He's a force of nature, brilliant, flawed, driven, controversial, and utterly unwilling to accept that the future is already written. Whether that makes him humanity's best hope or a cautionary tale about unchecked ambition remains to be seen. The story isn't over. Elon is still working 18-hour days, still announcing new projects, still pushing toward Mars, still refusing to slow down or shut up or accept that anything is impossible. And perhaps that's the point. Perhaps the value of Elon Musk isn't in whether every prediction comes true or every company succeeds. Perhaps the value is in the example he sets, that one person working hard enough and thinking clearly enough can still change the world. That limits are often illusions. That impossible just means nobody's done it yet. The final chapter of Elon Musk's story hasn't been written. He has years, maybe decades, ahead of him. More companies will be started, more rockets will launch, more controversies will erupt, more impossible things will be attempted, and when the story finally ends, When historians look back at the early 21st century, they'll have to grapple with this strange, brilliant, maddening man who looked at rockets and cars and the future itself and decided that none of it was impossible after all. The boy who lost a bicycle and found his destiny. The man who wouldn't accept no for an answer. The entrepreneur who risked everything repeatedly and somehow kept winning. Elon Musk. Whatever else you can say about him, you cannot say he accepted the world as it was. He bent it toward his vision, for better or worse. And in doing so, he changed what we think is possible. That, in the end, may be his greatest legacy.